June last year, I was driving over the mountains over to the west coast of Norway to visit my parents. And when I was about midway, I had just passed the hilltop when I suddenly saw the most spectacular view I have ever seen in my whole life. So I just had to pull over, and I remember going out of the car and just sitting down on a stone to just watch this absolutely gorgeous nature. You know, the bright colors, fresh blue water, and clear green trees, and then the sun dancing through the leaves. It was just absolutely incredible. And when I'm reflecting back on this memory, on how God created nature, or whatever you would like to call it, but where nature decided to outperform itself, I can't help but asking myself, is my daily choice ambition? Am I doing enough to outperform myself, to grow and to stretch and to develop? When I was 22 years old, or actually 21 years old in 10 months or something, I got my first monthly salary as a key account manager. And I remember looking down on this particular check that was about 10,150 euros. The same evening, I had booked about 7 meetings in my network marketing business. And my last week's check from my network marketing business had been 72 euros. And I remember thinking to myself, why am I working harder for those 72 euros than I do for those 10,150 euros? And at this time, I was just feeling so stressed. I was sleep deprived, I was stressed, I was frustrated that my business didn't grow the way I wanted it to do. And I even remember complaining to Orion, saying, you know, this network marketing thing, it isn't really working for me. I don't earn any money. Honestly, to settle for good was a very, very tempting choice. But today, I'm very glad I chose ambition. Now, I don't know where you are in your life today. Things are maybe looking brilliant for you. We've had some incredible months in Zinzino, and especially, I would say, May and June has been just over the top. But there's probably a few of you that are out there that maybe are finding yourself in the same situation that I was in back then, where you're feeling a little stressed that your business aren't really growing the way you want it to grow. To keep your ambition can sometimes be the hardest thing. So the big question is, will you settle for good, or will you choose ambition? Now, 2 weeks left, about, crossing my legs, making sure that he's not coming out yet. But, you know, since this amazing thing is happening in my life, I've read a few books and some articles about, you know, how to raise a child and labor. You know, this labor thing is a quite scary thing. How this little boy can come out of here, you know. It's just, it makes me terrified. And I just have to remind myself, there's a few women that has done it before you, Hilde. It's probably going to work out fine. And I don't know, but of course I know that there's not a definite answer to either labor or how to raise a child, but I think it's good to be informed, you know. Now, all parents, of course, want the best for their children. They want their children to develop and to grow and to raise the bar and become ambitious young people, right? And naturally, when you look at children, They are naturally ambitious. You can just watch them learn and talk and walk and develop. And this kind of ambition is, of course, admirable, but I do believe that to sustain the natural tendencies of ambition in a child, you have to foster that ambition in a greater sense. So, of course, I've read a dozen articles, and I don't know if it's going to work. Hopefully, some of you have some good advices for us if we don't really figure it out. But the key is that when you choose ambition, there is really nothing that can stop you. So one article that I read a few months back stated that there is 5 specific things that they recommend you to do to raise your child's ambition. Now, the first thing is to teach your child to talk about what they want. Now, secondly, you have to teach your child to not just talk, but actually do what they say they should do. And then thirdly, it's very important that you surround your children with positive role models. Positive role models is very important. And then fourthly, it's important to reward their small ambitions. And number 5 is to tie their ambition with their passion. Now, after reading all of these articles and books and stuff like that, I've kind of figured out that it seems like there's a lot of similarities between raising a child and developing a network marketing organization. So let's dig a little bit deeper into these 5. So the first thing, talk about what you want, to teach your children to talk about what you want. Well, this is not necessarily only important for children, you know. This is as important for us as grown-ups. Because what you think about and what you talk about, you also focus on, and what you focus on will eventually manifest into your life and become a reality. It becomes the most dominant picture on your inside. So what are you talking about? There's a lot of people that talk about what they saw on television last night, gossip about people around them, talk about the weather. No, hopefully, you're one of those people that talk about how your actions can benefit your family. Hopefully, you're one of those people that talk about how you can help your partner A to raise to diamond and then further on to crown and black crown, and what will happen in their life when they succeed. Maybe you're one of those people that are talking about how it's gonna be when you drive your diamond car, what color you're gonna have on the leather seats. Maybe you're talking about how it's gonna be to stand on the balcony or the terrace of the new apartment or the new house that you bought and just watch this spectacular view over the sea. I don't know. The main thing is that you understand that there is power in your words. Extreme power in your words. And when you focus on certain things and you start to talk about it, it manifests into your life. And if you talk about those things that you don't want, well, that's not necessarily making you so attractive for people to follow. But if you talk about those things that you truly want, that is the most attractive thing with a human being. Now, a very famous author and speaker, Norman Vincent Peale, he once said that to achieve something meaningful in life, you have to have a little bit of fantasy and a big dream. Did you hear that? A big dream. Did you really hear that? Yeah. However, sometimes I see that certain people are taking this to the extreme. They're making fantasy lists that they don't necessarily believe in themselves. And if you don't believe in what you say you're going to aim for, it's not really going to do the work for you, because you have to believe in order to go out and take action on it. But, of course, like for instance, when we said in the beginning that we were aiming, as a company, we were aiming for 1 million customers in 2020. Honestly, to be quite frank with you, it was a little difficult for Orion and I to believe that that actually could become a reality. I believe this was in 2009 when we decided upon this vision. So what we did to actually make it more believable for ourselves was to actually divide it into part-time goals, where we saw that, well, if we could grow 50% a year over the next years, we would actually hit it. It would be inevitable. So if you're making that big, bold dream for yourself, it's important that you actually also divide it into part-time things so that you actually also understand how you can go out and get it. Are you getting something from this? So the magic appears when you apply self-discipline into your dreaming and you actually go out and do what you say you should do. Now, one of the big challenges when we are building Zinzino is that, well, of course, for a lot of people, this is a new profession. You don't really necessarily know exactly what to go out and do, and you don't necessarily know how to structure your time. Maybe this is the first time you've been a self-employed, and you really don't know how am I going to structure my time? And I remember one teaching that one of Orion's mentors had many years back. He talked about time management. His name is Bob Harrison. And he said that to structure your time most efficiently, you should divide it into 4 parts. High productive activity, medium productive activity, low productive activity, and no productive activity. And because we like nicknames and we like to shorten things, I've called it hypo, midpo, lowpo, and nopo. Sounds a little cool, right? So, let's look at the hypos. What is the high productive activities in our business? Well, what is important is that the high productive activity is usually those activity that has the potential to lead to a result there and then. For instance, a short presentation, a customer demonstration, or a second look. A lot of people would say that everything within the Zinzino system should go into hypo. I disagree a little bit with that. There are certain things in the Zinzino system that is not necessarily a hypo. It's maybe a midpo, but it could lead to a hypo. So, for instance, attending a business presentation is very important, extremely important. But if you don't use the business presentation as it is intended to be used, to bring new prospects, to use it as a second look, the business presentation becomes a midpo. You should still be there. It's extremely important that you're there, but it's a midpo, it's not a hypo. So the way you do it as a hypo is to actually involve the new prospects. Events, leadership training, like we're on today, it's the same thing. If you haven't really done the work to sell the tickets, to fill the chairs with your team, it's a midpo activity. The way you make it a hypo is to make sure that you do a tremendous job on beforehand to make sure that you fill the seats with your team. Then it becomes a hypo. Booking meetings, very important. And a lot of people would say that the booking meeting is definitely a hypo, but it's a midpo that will eventually lead to hypo. The same is with getting started meetings, but actually you could also have a getting started meeting as a low productive activity if you're not actually making sure to book the meetings, to make the action plan. Now, if you make sure to book the 5 meetings on the getting started meeting, it eventually becomes a midpo that would lead to a hypo. Are you with me? Same counts with coaching. Coaching with an action plan would be a midpo. Coaching without an action plan would be a lowpo. You know, adding names to your name list, personal development. Well, we can go into personal development first. Personal development is crucial because your business rises and falls on the development that is happening within you. The growth of your business is always a reflection of the growth within you. At the same time, personal development is a low-po activity when you look at it from a results standpoint. But it's extremely important to do it to actually get the results long term. So, update name list, like I said earlier on. Well, you know what? It's super to update your name list. You should definitely do it. But if you haven't really called the people on your original name list, maybe you should start to make some phone calls first. Talking with your team. Updating your Facebook page. I know that there's a lot of people that believe that the magic is in updating their Facebook page. And they're living for the likes and the comments, you know, on those pictures. But never delude yourself to believe that to update your Facebook page is going to be the thing that will drive your business. Sure, it's going to build your image, but be wise about it. It's a low productive activity and maybe also sometimes a no productive activity. If you're checking, for instance, what your neighbor had for dinner for the 5th time, or what they did on a party, it's a no-po, my friend. Okay? So talking with your team, we're talking with your partners, extremely important. But again, it has to lead to a certain action plan. So you could talk with your partners, could be a low-po, but it could also be a no-po. I'm one of those people, like I said yesterday, that I'm a little control freak. I like structure, I like order. But one thing I've always had with me is that my work desk looks like a catastrophic minefield. It's very chaotic, extremely chaotic. Papers all over, you know. So once a month, I just have to clean up my work desk. But it's definitely a low or a no-po activity. It doesn't really lead to any result, right? So to organize paper, to make sure that everything is structured, orderly, and all of those things, it is really a no-po. The key to understand here, and this is the key, 50% of your time should be used on the high productive activity. And then it's totally fine to use 50% of your time to the 3 other parts. The problem appears if you think that you could use 80% of your time on the mid-po, the low-po, and the no-po, and then use 20% of your time on the high-po. Then you're not necessarily going to get the results you want. So dreaming and talking about your goals is, of course, very important. But the magic appears when you start to do the work. Third key, to surround your children with positive role models. Now, I am a huge believer in mentorship. I'm actually such a believer in mentorship that I'm writing a book about it. And I've been writing for it for a couple of years now, and it's probably going to be ready in a year or two, hopefully. But one thing that is important to remember with mentorship is that, and the reason I truly believe so much in it, is that if you want to shortcut your process of achieving success, it's very smart to walk in someone else's footsteps that has done it before you. If you look at the definition of a role model, it's said that it's someone's behavior, say behavior, or success, say success, or example, say example, that is worth to follow. Someone's behavior, success, or example that is worth to follow. So one thing is to have a mentor. Another thing is to actually spend time together with those positive role models. Surround yourself with those positive role models. So how often are you talking with your mentors? How often are you asking them questions? How often are you applying the keys and the advices that you're being given from your mentor? One thing is to get the advice, another thing is to follow the advice, that's also very crucial. How often are you inviting your mentors for dinner, for lunch? Now, if your mentor is someone in your upline from the team, how often are you the one that are the first that qualify for the campaign so that this person can stop you? Or not just stop you, but spot you. Not stop you, spot you. Because when they spot you as a talent, they would usually spend more time together with you. And you would like that, right? What responsibility are you taking within your team? The key to understand is that you're always the average of your 5 closest friends. And very often I see people say that, well, my 5 closest friends is this person, that person, that person, that person. And then suddenly, when you start to think through, well, who are you actually spending the most time with? Well, that's the persons that are your 5 closest friends. So you will become the average when it comes to marriage, health, and business of those 5 closest friends. The 4th key, to reward small ambitions. I remember when I was a child, one of the things that I truly, truly wanted from my parents was to get them to see me and to praise me, and talk about me in a positive sense. And definitely my love language would be words of affirmation. So they could get me to clean the whole house, very often actually, just to get me, or because I truly wanted them to just recognize me, say something positive, And it didn't really matter if it was like public or if it was private. That was something that I really strove for. So what about you? How are you rewarding your team's small ambitions? What are you doing to see them? Are you giving them some gifts? Are you spending time together with them? Are you sharing experiences? Or how are you giving them that recognition that a lot of them, I would say, truly need and want? And one thing is to think about how you're spending your time when it comes to this with your team. Another thing is also to think through, how are you rewarding yourself? Because if you think that you're only going to reward yourself when you hit Black Crown or President or Elite President or Global Starfleet Commander, it's definitely going to be a very long journey. So to involve your family, your children, your friends, your team, your sponsor on rewarding yourself, maybe through an experience, maybe through something you buy to yourself, is very smart along the way, because everything becomes so much more fun if you learn to celebrate. When I grew up, my father, who is a medical doctor by profession, he decided that he wanted to learn acupuncture. And he's one of those guys that really wants to learn it all, when he really starts to do something. And actually, the reason why he started learning acupuncture was because he wanted to prove that it didn't work. So the first year, I think that was the key for him. But then he really started to learn it, and he really saw the results. And one thing that was important for him, I remember him reading a lot during my childhood. And one thing that was important for him was to learn not just the acupuncture point, but the Chinese words for the acupuncture points, and of course where they were located, everything, So to push himself a little bit, and because he knew that I liked to earn money, he decided to tie his ambition with my passion. So what he said was that, well, Hilde, if you learn this acupuncture point in Chinese, and the location of it, and you remember it for a week, you will get 5 kroners in payment. Now, of course, I wanted those 5 kroners. So every evening before going to bed, he gave me a new acupuncture point and the location of it. So still today, I don't know acupuncture and all the theory behind it, but I know a lot of acupuncture points in Chinese. So how do you tie your ambition with your passion? For some of you, your passion is personal development, and that's the reason why you're pushing yourself to grow, to stretch, to step out of the comfort zone. For some of you, your ambition is the product. You would just love to help people in balance and be able to affect that trend. Or you just love our marvelous coffee, and you would like to give people around you the most extraordinary experience every morning. For some of you, your passion is in helping people, and you see that by building a big network marketing organization, you could also build a financial freedom for yourself that will enable you to give more. And I do believe that if you give, you also receive. Or you could affect other people's life by helping them achieve what they want. Now, for me today, I would say that one of my strongest passions is to teach and train. So, in other words, what a great opportunity to be able to teach and train through this profession, right? One of my mentors for many years, that unfortunately passed away a few years ago, his name was Brian Clemmer, and I had so many great experiences together with Brian Clemmer. And one of the things that he usually said during his trainings was, "Do dogs like bones?" And a lot of people would say, yes, dogs like bones. But truthfully, if the dog really had the choice between the steak and the bone, would the dog really choose the bone? Of course not. He would choose the steak. Much better alternative. So what are you settling for? What are you settling for in your life? Are you settling for an okay marriage? Or are you determined to make your marriage absolutely spectacular? Orin and I have this mantra in our marriage. Actually, since we started dating, we said that we want an ever-growing, everlasting, wildly romantic relationship. And that's a daily choice. It's a daily choice. Are you happy with just being alive? Or are you determined to make your health and your shape and everything about that spectacular? Are you okay with just having a pin level? Or are you really in it for earning the money? There's a total difference between just having a pin level and actually earning the money that is linked to that pin level. What are you doing to do that every single day? What are you settling for? 10,150 euros. My first monthly check as a key account manager. And the reality was that it was a good sum of money. Still today, that's a good payment. It's a good monthly payment, right? And for some of you, you might be thinking to yourself, you know, it's beyond my wildest dream. When you woke up this morning, you would be so happy for it. But what is going to happen is that when you choose ambition, ambition is going to push you to your utmost potential. Did you hear that? Ambition is going to push you towards your utmost potential. And honestly, 10,150 euros would be a very bad week for me today. And so of you are thinking this blonde is a little arrogant. But that's the truth, because when you choose ambition, that will push you towards the next level. And just like nature just outperformed itself, making this spectacular, beautiful picture that no painter could copy, when you choose ambition in your life, that is going to help you rise to the top and go towards not just the next level, but the level after that, and the level after that, and the level after that. So everything starts when you start to feed that hunger, when you start to feed that dream, and you also go out and you do what you said you should do. That's when everything starts. 1 million customers, 2020. Imagine that day. We will have over 1,000 crowns in a room, almost this room, you know. Over 1,000 crowns. Like Tim said, oi, oi, oi. That day will come. And you better ask yourself, why not you? Thank you.